the anemia that can cause can be fatal. The greatest risks that we see with fibroids, really with the heavy bleeding, the anemia that can cause can be fatal, because people don't realize anemia can cause heart failure, okay? And then there's also the risk of, when fibroids are larger, it can press on blood vessels. That can also cause blood clots.
Blood clots.
Yeah, and those blood clots can literally be fatal as well. Those are two critical things, as well as, depending on where they're growing, they can press on your kidneys and other organs and cause, when it's inflammation of the kidney, it can cause hydronephrosis, and that can damage the function of your kidney. Like in my history, I developed an obstruction from actually the scar tissue after the surgery that caused the adhesions that developed an obstruction, and now that caused a digestive issue. Now, I mean, it's become a lifelong thing for me, where now I have short gut.
Infertility is a major risk factor to having fibroids, depending on where fibroid is, meaning is it inside the uterus, which is called a submucosal fibroid, or if it's in the muscle, which is an intramural, versus a subserosal, which is kind of on that lining, which is the skin of the uterus. They can impact fertility in different ways. One, taking up space, so a baby can't grow or embryo can't implant, or leading to miscarriage because they're in that space. If they're in the muscle, really close to the tubes, then they can even block the tubes and not allowing an egg to even get in, or sperm to reach an egg to fertilize it. To do a delivery and someone has a fibroid in the lower part of their uterus, then that's how the baby gets out. So it's a hard, firm tumor. So a baby's head is a hard, firm object. So those two don't go together. So sometimes it can lead to a C-section. And during a C-section, if you have a fibroid in the way, then that could be tremendous bleeding, leading to even a hysterectomy at the time of a delivery.
I personally had and lived with a very, very low blood count while I suffered with my fibroids, and I essentially hemorrhaged every 2 weeks. And I was working 100-hour weeks as a resident with a hematocrit of 24. I mean, that was just my baseline. I just randomly checked it one day, and I was...
And that's low. 24 is low.
24 is low. Like, I should have been pale. I should have been the color of my chair. And
that melanin keep you right.
That melanin did keep me right. But I kept going. I didn't realize how tired I was, or I made an excuse for my fatigue. It was because I was working. I was a new wife. I was, you know what I mean? I had to cook when I got home and clean and do all of these things. We keep it moving.
I diagnosed so many fibroids that people had no idea were there, and they're very angry. One, because they're battling infertility. And then they're so angry because they've got their pap smears every year and their doctor has told them everything is fine. And they're so upset because they just feel like they've been, ignored or, like just misdiagnosed or undiagnosed. And I have to kind of reassure them that, sometimes it's very hard to pick up. You can do a good bimanual exam, but just because that fibroids is a little bit just in a place out of reach from your exam, a person can miss it.
I've heard people ask this question: if I have a fibroid, can it turn into cancer? If it's either cancerous, a leiomyoma, carcinoma, or it's not. And I think that that's important, because I've heard people question that, like, wait a minute, can it turn cancerous? And that's not the case.
Partnering, getting an understanding and listening to your body and going to the doctor and checking on these things, because all three of us see many times patients that will come in the door and they've had fibroids diagnosed 5 or 8 years ago, and they'll say, but they didn't bother me.